Got it.
All right, let's open with prayer. Gracious and loving God, thank you for gathering us together in the many ways that we come together, for the opportunity to see friends even though they are many miles away, and to share in this time. I pray that you'll be with us as we talk about how this particular manifestation of your body here on earth goes about its business, goes about discerning how you are at work among us, discerning what you are calling us into and how you are calling us to be. It's an important piece, even though sometimes it may feel very convoluted. So be with us as we trace all those steps and talk about deeper faithfulness. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, so this is a General Assembly year. Um, our General Assembly meets every other year. That was a change in the early 2000s from annually. And so we meet on the even years. And this is the 225th General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church USA, counting back to when it first began in Philadelphia. And our presbytery, Newcastle Presbytery, is one of the earliest presbyteries of this country. We split off of the First Presbytery, Philadelphia, once they grew enough. So we've been participating in General Assemblies of the Presbyterian Church for a very long time, probably close to 220 of them in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so what do you know about General Assembly?
It's fun.
It is fun. I love being there, yeah.
Yeah, and you can like psych out a lot about what's going on. I was at Pittsburgh, the one in Pittsburgh,
Yep.
allegedly to help out with my grandkids so that my daughter could be more present. But we sort of switched off. That was really nice.
Yeah, fun. How about you, Debbie?
I used to go to General Assembly, and it was for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. We go
Okay.
down to our state's General Assembly.
Yeah.
But I've never had any dealings with the presbyteries.
Yeah. Woo.
Oh,
We call it a big family reunion. Um, those of us who serve in mid-council ministry at the presbytery level, we have that opportunity to gather with our colleagues from across the United States, but it's also a family reunion across the globe. The partnerships that we're in with other reformed bodies, we will have ecumenical delegates as part of the assembly. So I'm going to take the step back. Every presbytery is invited and authorized to send commissioners, and the number of commissioners is based on the size of the presbytery, and that can be found in our Book of Order. That information is part of our Constitution. Newcastle Presbytery has the right to send one teaching elder commissioner, one ruling elder commissioner, and every presbytery at this point has the right to send one young adult advisory delegate. It's one of the ways that we try to make sure that we're hearing a lot of different voices. We elected our commissioners back in the fall, back at our September presbytery meeting. And they have been getting emails about the upcoming assembly and the work. Part of what happens is, as all the commissioners across the PCUSA are elected, they are then assigned to the committees that are going to do the work ahead of the assembly making decisions. And the committees work on things that come to them from our denominational offices. So, for instance, the Presbyterian Mission Agency might send through their World Mission division an overture about how we do world mission. And so that would go to a committee to be looked at and prayed over, and overture advocates would come and say, this is why this is a good idea. Our presbytery voted in the fall to send an overture. And so this is the process for the presbyteries. It can happen one of two ways. Either a session of a congregation votes to request that the presbytery send an overture, be the author of an overture to the General Assembly, or concur with an overture. The way our polity runs is, in order for one of those overtures coming from presbyteries to be considered, it needs at least one concurrence. It needs a second, essentially. And so we at the presbytery level can either vote to be the authors, the originators of an overture, which we did on an overture for the rules of discipline, or to concur with an overture. And you get the preview information. We're actually in the process of calling a special presbytery meeting on Tuesday, April 5th, because we received a request from a session to concur with an overture. And the deadline is April 19th. So we have to do it by April 19th. We have to take action on that request. So that's how the business of the General Assembly comes to the General Assembly. It comes from us. Any session could say, you know what, we feel really strongly about the need for more affordable housing. That's what our moderator this year is asking us to think about, housing and how housing impacts people. So the presbytery could set up a task force to write an overture. A church could have a small group work on an overture, or you might be aware of an overture that's already being circulated that you feel strongly about, that you want to concur with. And that can come up to the presbytery level and then be sent by the presbytery to the General Assembly for consideration. So it's pretty cool. Not everybody realizes that all that work that the General Assembly does, a lot of it comes from us, and the things that we value and think are important. So all of our commissioners are assigned to committees. The committees are assigned the business by categories, and we'll take a look at that in just a minute. This General Assembly will be our second unique assembly. In 2020, the 224th General Assembly met entirely digitally for the first time in our history. In fact, our standing rules don't allow for a digital meeting, so technically that General Assembly was out of order. And it meant that a lot of the normal business was set aside. The decision was made not to consider overtures that would seek to amend the Book of Order, because what if the assembly that is technically out of order passed an overture to amend the Book of Order, and it received the required majority of presbyteries approving it? Someone could say, that's out of order, because the assembly didn't have the authority to meet in the format it met. So a lot of the work of the 224th General Assembly is coming to the 225th General Assembly. And the way they're getting around it because we're still navigating the pandemic, and we're still navigating what it means to have a large group of people from across a large geographic area come together. Still wanting to be careful. There are risks involved. So the first set of committees, I forget, maybe committees 1 through 4, 1 through 5, but the first set of committees are traveling to Louisville, Kentucky, to where our headquarters are, and arriving on June 17th. That group of committees is enough to form a quorum for the General Assembly. And so they are going to, for this historic General Assembly, second in a row, they are going to form as a quorum, be called to order, and among their first items of business, they're going to consider a change to the standing rules to allow for the business of the General Assembly to go forward in electronic format. We're doing the best with what we've got, right? After that, some of the normal opening of General Assembly things will happen. The moderators will be elected. There'll be opening worship, and those committees will be physically present. I'm not entirely sure how all that's working, but the important thing is they'll be asked to change the standing rules to allow for the assembly. After that, the other committees will come in a staggered format. So when the first set of committees finishes their work, they're looking at all of the overtures that have come to their committee, they'll all fly home. And the day that they're all flying home, the next set of committees will be arriving. So it'll be a staggered process. Instead of having everybody at a convention center all at the same time, the committees will meet in person in this staggered, layered process, which is going to go on for 3 weeks. It's a big commitment, especially for our General Assembly staff, our national staff. Then finally, after all the committees have done their work, the General Assembly this time is going to meet in plenary when, as a body, it considers all of the work coming out of the committees. They're going to meet in plenary starting July 5th. And that's when the committees will have taken the overtures. So, for instance, we sent an overture related to the rules of discipline. That's going, unsurprisingly, to the Rules of Discipline Committee. That committee will hear our overture advocate, will hear overture advocates from the presbyteries that concurred with our overture. And then the committee has the responsibility of amending. They can amend the overture we're sending. They can vote it down. They can say we're not going to we're not going to recommend that the General Assembly consider this item of business, or they can send it on as is. Yeah, Barb?
So it makes me think that I don't really know what the technical definition of plenary is.
Oh,
like I know what it is, okay, plenary, that's when you have the speaker and everybody comes, but what does that mean to me in plenary? I realized I don't actually know what the real definition of that is.
Yeah, this is probably not the Webster definition, but it's the body, it's the whole comes together. So we're not broken into committees, we're not broken into task forces. It's when the body as a whole is gathered to do the
and is
the work.
Anticipated that will be like, who will be in person for that, or is that going to be like all online?
That's going to be all online for this one. Yeah.
Okay, so that everybody has equal
exactly.
potential participation.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
because I know the last one, it was so last minute when they had to make the change that there was a lot of controversy about.
It was hard. And
yeah.
And we know there's no perfect way. Even when we gather in person, there is still unequal access. The commissioners who speak another language like Spanish or Korean as their first language, they have additional barriers to participation. It's not equal access. Commissioners with physical challenges have some additional barriers to participation because I'll tell you, those convention centers are big. and moving around and getting from one place to another, it's a hike. So even in person, there are the barriers. There are the barriers to participation.
Right. Well, and online too, right? Like, I mean, I can think of some people in Newcastle Presbytery whose internet is, you know, like you would have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To have reliable internet. You wouldn't be able to do it like from home.
Exactly.
Kirk Dowse, when he was running the meetings for McKinney from Old Rehoboth, you know, he basically had to be audio only. Yeah. Because as soon as he turned on his video, everything would crash.
Yeah, and so some presbyteries are providing, they're paying for their commissioners to be in a hotel or
like to
gather at the presbytery office.
Yeah, it's sort of sad not to have that. I mean, I guess, so are all the commissioners are on some committee though, right?
Yes.
So they will have done the groupie thing. Because that's part of what makes it cool.
It is. And it's part of what helps us connect with one another, right? We get to the committees are set up using a computer algorithm that's very difficult so that they are as diverse as possible, diverse geographically, diverse. They will be half and half between teaching elder and ruling elder, diverse in terms of gender, diverse as much as possible in terms of ethnicity. So those committees are a microcosm of the entire body of commissioners. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a shame. That's the one thing coming from the retreat this time.
Yeah.
I met so many people from so many different cultures and ethnicity and, you know, pastors, ruling elders. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
Make so many connections.
Mm-hmm. And the plan is, as I've taken to saying, God willing, and the COVID don't rise. The plan is in 2024 for the 226th General Assembly that will be an in-person General Assembly in Salt Lake City. That's the host city for that assembly. But we're holding it loosely, you know? We're holding it loosely. So back to the Rules of Discipline. The Rules of Discipline Committee considers our overture, and let's say they decide to amend it and send it to the body, to General Assembly. So when the Assembly meets in plenary, each committee will have a particular slot to present. And they will bring the work they have done to the entire General Assembly to be considered by the whole. At that point in time, the Assembly gets the option to amend, you know, to substitute. That's a whole process to present a substitute motion. That's a lot of fun. And then once those things are done, the Assembly votes. Yes, no. And if it's a yes vote, if it's a change to our Book of Order, to our Constitution, then that particular motion has one more hurdle. So with the Rules of Discipline, that is a change to our Book of Order. It's a change to the Rules of Discipline section. If it is adopted by the committee and then approved by the General Assembly, then it will go out to all the presbyteries. Because in order to change our Book of Order, a majority of presbyteries have to vote in favor of the change. So, after this General Assembly, pretty quickly, by the end of the summer, we will know what amendments to the Book of Order will be coming before us to be considered. And depending on how many there are, we may schedule a special presbytery meeting to do that work. And those are, at that point, up or down votes. We can't amend the amendment because it's coming from the General Assembly. It stands as it is. We vote either yes or no, and it moves forward or dies depending on the votes of the majority of the presbyteries. To amend our Book of Confessions has a higher hurdle. And I won't go into that right now, but it takes more because it is adding to our confession of faith. Our most recent addition to the Book of Confessions was adopted in 2016 at the 222nd General Assembly, and that's the Belhar Confession. So I'm going to share. Do you have a?
No, I was saying, I knew that it was in the Book of Order.
I'm going to share my screen. I'll share sound just in case I go to sound. All right, can you see that? It's a website that says from, all right, perfect. So this is, now we actually are in the 21st century, even the church. And for our General Assemblies, they have their own website. You can see the address there. It's pretty simple, ga-pcusa.org. I will copy that and put it in the chat. So this is the public website where you can see what the theme is. The theme for this General Assembly is From Lament to Hope, looking at Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is assurance of things hoped for, a conviction of things not seen. There's leader briefing, which was going on the last 2 weeks. So briefing for leaders of committees. If you are interested, you can watch that video. It's not reserved just for the leaders of the committee. If you're curious about what it takes to be a committee leader, what committees do, there you go. You can check that out. You can take a look at the agenda for this General Assembly. There's a Bible study series. So if you are interested in having your church participate in the General Assembly Bible study, there's always a Bible study as part of General Assembly. Here's where you can learn more and get that series. The important dates, especially for commissioners and leaders. Deadlines. Like I said, we're having a special presbytery meeting to meet a deadline, the April 19th deadline. And then there's a news feed with the different articles that have gone out. Up at the top, you can get more information. You can learn about Bible study, worship, the worship offering. And so I'm going to point that out. Do you see the worship offering page now? Great. Okay, so the moderators coming into this General Assembly, so elected at the previous General Assembly and calling to order this General Assembly, have the honor of designating the worship offering for opening worship. And so our co-moderators, Ilona Street Stewart and Gregory Bentley, have lifted up this group called Restorative Actions. And so here on this page, you can learn more about that organization. You can see here, Restorative Actions is an economic justice initiative that encourages mid-councils, congregations, individuals, and interested organizations to relinquish or surrender wealth that is attributable to white supremacy. Administered through private trusts and private charitable trusts, the offering will increase opportunities for Indigenous and African American individuals and communities to flourish across the United States. So very much in line with Our Matthew 25 commitment, very much in line with the book we've been reading, Decolonizing Wealth. So congregations can decide to participate in the General Assembly opening worship offering because we can give online. Woo-hoo, we don't have to do it in person. And in fact, at the 223rd General Assembly in 2018, the offering was designated to an End Cash Bail initiative in St. Louis, where the General Assembly was meeting. And we had an opportunity to participate in justice action. And the Tuesday of General Assembly week in the afternoon, commissioners and participants were invited to march down to the Justice Center. And we had a rally on the steps and gave a check to the organizers that would help pay the bail for people who are being held for nonviolent alleged offenses. Because the way cash bail works, if you are arrested because of an outstanding warrant for a speeding ticket, and you're arrested for that, you have to pay in cash your bail. If you are unable to pay your bail in cash, you stay in jail for a speeding ticket. Of course, that policy overwhelmingly impacts people who are below the poverty line or living in poverty, negatively impacts predominantly people of color, Black, Brown, Indigenous people. And so at that General Assembly, that worship offering caught the imagination of our church and of beyond the church. We had people join the march who had no idea who a Presbyterian was. They're like, I don't know what that is, but what you're doing is inspiring. And so we had people come off the sidewalks, join the march to the Justice Center, contribute to the action, and we raised over $40,000 to help pay the cash bail of people who were being held on alleged nonviolent offenses, which can be life-changing. Being able to continue to work, because you can't work if you're in jail, to be with your family, because you're separated if you're in jail, to be able to go about your day-to-day actions while waiting for your constitutionally guaranteed day in court is life-changing. That was a really exciting thing to be a part of. So this General Assembly, the offering is for Restorative Actions, another place where we can be a part of, in a small way, or maybe God willing, in a really large way, righting some of our historic wrongs. So congregations can get involved, individuals can get involved. We are able to participate in that national offering. And somewhere there should be a donate now button. I'm not seeing it off the top of my head. So that's the worship offering. And then we're also having a Juneteenth event. Juneteenth, more details coming soon, is the day when the news of the freeing of enslaved people reached Galveston, Texas. It took a long time to make it to them. And so that has been a holiday lifted up in the Black and African American community for a while, and now is a national holiday as well. And so we will be observing a Juneteenth celebration with a hybrid worship service. Yeah, so that's another possibility to pay attention to. So this particular website, the ga.peaceusa.org, is a great place to go for information, for the schedule, and for things like worship. I'm going to shift to a second website. All right, do you see this one? It's PC Biz. Okay, good. And I will put this link in the chat as well. Again, pretty easy. PC, as in Presbyterian Church, /biz, biz.org. So this is where all of those overtures are gathered. This website, anyone can create a login on this website. I'm logged in right now as my very own self. Anyone can create a login. And if you create a login, then you can set up items that you want to watch. You know, if you say, I want to pay attention to this particular overture, I want to see where it is in committee, because that information will be shown here. I want to see, did it make it to the General Assembly? Is it amended? Has it been changed? All of that information shows up on PC Biz. So here at the top, you've got the search, which is fantastic. And then you have committees. And so here you see 225th General Assembly, but you can look at past committees. So if you want to, you're pretty sure that some action was taken at the 223rd General Assembly, but you can't remember exactly what it was, you can go back and search that assembly. That's one of the great things about PC Biz. Here, we're going to stay with this year, 225th, and then we can select a committee. Do you see all those committees? We have a lot of committees at this GA, and we have a lot of work to do. So look at the titles. Bills and Overtures, Assembly Committee on Business Referral. Those are the standing committees. We always have those. Ecumenical and interfaith engagement. It's an important part of who we are as the Presbyterian Church. And see, that's one of the keys. The committees in our General Assembly give us an idea, a direction of where our energy is in this time and this place. Ecumenical, environmental justice, financial resources, because we put a lot of energy into that. General Assembly ministry coordination, so that's the national level, how we coordinate our ministry, our policies and procedures, because, you know, health, safety, and benefits. So there you might find overtures about national health care, because we believe that everyone should have access to affordable quality health care. And so there may be studies and overtures saying we want to encourage our senators to take up this particular item. Immigration is an important issue. International engagement. And that is where we might find overtures relating to Israel and Palestine. We almost always talk about that intertwined, very difficult relationship. This year, there may be some commissioner resolutions about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That is a possibility. Mid-councils, that's the Presbyterian Synod level. Moving forward, Vision 2020, those are groups that have been looking to cast a vision for us. Plenary, as Barb helped us define earlier, that's the body. So when we meet as General Assembly in plenary, then that's everybody. And so the business being considered at that time is what we'll be showing under the plenary committee. Polity, race and gender justice. Like I said, rules of discipline, standing rules of the General Assembly. There are going to be some major changes there. Theology, worship, and education, and addressing violence in the USA. Everyone has been assigned a committee, and those committees are assigned overtures. So let's take a look at the Environmental Justice Committee. So I've picked that committee, and under that tab, you see the business. So these are the overtures that have been assigned to this committee at this point. There's only 10 of them. Yeah, so there'll only be 10 of them.
Only?
Only. Some of them, we'll take a look at a couple of the other committees. Some of them will have a lot. And so here you can look at each overture. As I said, we, Newcastle Presbytery, have received a request from a session to concur with this overture on declaring the time is now to cherish creation, cut carbon, and speak up. So I'm going to click on that, and it opens up the full overture. It opens up the body of the motion, which are all these things in bold. It also opens up the rationale. That's always a piece that accompanies any overture. And it's a long rationale. And then it tells us the information about it, that it was sponsored by Mid-Kentucky Presbytery. And what I notice is it does not yet have a concurring presbytery, which is another reason why we are having a special meeting. If it does not receive a concurrence by April 19th, it will not come to this General Assembly for consideration. So we're going to talk about that. But here you see this overture. And you can take a look at any of the overtures coming to any of the committees. You are also able to see the members of the committees. You're able to see who the leadership is. The leadership is appointed by the moderators coming into this General Assembly, and who is providing support, and then the names of the commissioners and advisory delegates that are assigned to this committee. You're able to see their schedule once it's posted, if they take action, when they take action, what that is, what the financial implications are. All those things can be found under a committee tab. So if you're curious, if you're like, well, what is the Moving Forward Vision 2020? Just these two things, which are kind of big. The Moving Forward Implementation Committee has a large report with many items of action. But if you're curious, what is that? What is that? You can take a look by going to PC Biz and searching for this committee. Same thing from the 2020 Vision Team. And both of those are pieces of business that would have been considered at the previous General Assembly in 2020 and were postponed to this General Assembly. If you're curious about race and gender justice, what kinds of things do we want to say about race and gender justice? This committee has 13 items. Well, minus 3 at this point. So you have an opportunity to take a look at what business is going to be considered by our committees before coming to the floor of the General Assembly. The last thing I'll point out in PC Biz is the very, very important session sync. Session sync means that it updates as things are being changed. So I'm going to stop the share. We experienced this in the 2020 GA, the 224th General Assembly, our first Zoom, all digital assembly. So our commissioners were all on Zoom, but they all had PC Biz loaded in a second device. And that's another way presbyteries provide support, is helping to provide devices for people who might need them. So for me, like I have PC Biz up on my tablet and Zoom on my computer. And so if I was a commissioner under session sync, I would see active what we're voting on, what we're considering, and I would be able, as a commissioner logged in, I would have different benefits that aren't available to just observers. I would be able to request that the moderator recognize me to speak for or against. I'd be able to put in an amendment and put that into the system. Again, requesting to be recognized, to put that amendment before the body. So our commissioners use both PC Biz, where all the language of the business, all the text of the business is happening, and Zoom, where the spoken pieces, where the moderator is on Zoom moderating, paying attention to who has requested to be recognized to speak, where things are in terms of the process. It's a little complicated, and that's why our commissioners will all have to have a training so that they know they have the equipment, and that's, if they don't, the Presbytery helps provide that. Know that they can work the equipment, that their login works, that they understand how it works. They have test runs. They'll learn how to vote. They'll learn how to seek recognition, all those things. So they'll have those trainings in the next couple of months. Whoo! And if you've never been a commissioner to the General Assembly, it's a lot. Yeah, sure. It's long days when you're in committee. It's long nights when you are in plenary. Some plenaries will go past midnight, depending on the topic. But it is amazing, and my experience, both as an observer, because as a Presbytery leader, I've been to every General Assembly since 2012 to support our commissioners, to be present in case they have a need, but also to be able to help interpret what happened, interpret the actions, interpret what comes next. And it's amazing. It's amazing being in the room. It's amazing feeling the Spirit move. And I will say that that's a tangible reality every time I've gone. And then, of course, having the immense honor of serving as co-moderator and being part of shepherding the process was, it was fantastic. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, but that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Yeah. So General Assembly, 225th, our first hybrid assembly. Yeah. Questions, comments, things you're curious about?
I just never realized so much was involved.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Well, I can go on record as saying I would love to be a commissioner. That would be great fun.
All right. So noted.
Just an observer, in Pittsburgh, but it was fun. And I think I was there we tried to go when it was in Wichita.
Okay.
So we made some of the stuff. My aunt lived in town and we were hoping she would watch the children, but she turned out to be not really up to watching the children. So we didn't get to go to as much as we'd hoped. And I believe that I was at some of it when it was in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So, just maybe the opening kind of thing.
And that's my first General Assembly was Pittsburgh in 2012. And I do think going forward, our assemblies will be a little different than they were before the pandemic. They were pretty
when I was talking to you
blowout affairs. But usually part of what happens is the host committee for the host city plans events and activities for observers. Oftentimes people will go as a family. So you may be a commissioner, but a spouse or a partner or adult child or not adult child may come with you and take advantage of getting to see some of the innovative ministries in the area. That's always something I love because it gives me ideas. Take advantage of some of the cultural opportunities, seeing the cultural sites in the city. Yeah, yeah. So there's something to do, and of course the assembly hall with all the vendors, where you can, on the one hand, learn about just the immense range of ministry of the Presbyterian Church. The first time I went, I was just blown away. I thought I knew a lot about the PCUSA. I'm a little bit of a church nerd, if you hadn't figured that out. I thought I really knew a lot. But then I got to the convention hall with all of the tables and booths, and it's just like I had no idea about some of the ministries, some of our impact, some of the reach we have. So there's that side of the convention hall. And then the other side is, selling things, people selling things to support mission and ministry, church related items, the bookstore where you can get curriculum and new books. You can, yeah. I spent hours in
Wow.
that space, partly talking to people, tell me about this ministry, tell me about what you're doing. And then also, browsing. Oh, so if I buy these chocolate bars from Guatemala, I'll be supporting the livelihood of women and children in this village. Okay, I'll buy some chocolate. Yeah. So Salt Lake City, Utah, 2024 is intended to be our next fully in-person GA. And
So are they still doing big tent in the off years?
I don't know what the decision on that is. We clearly didn't in 2021.
Right. Yeah, that was fairly, they were glad not to have something of great meeting importance.
Exactly.
So we should explain. So big tent, so when they went to every other year, I don't remember how long ago it was. I don't know if it was immediate, but they went to, in the off years, they went to sort of more of a gathering, training, kind of alternative thing. And I think it's been in Louisville. Like, I don't think they always go somewhere else, do they? I don't remember now.
What they've done the last couple of times was they've had it in the city that would be hosting the next GA.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, I went one in Louisville. There were a couple of years, but I think just because like ease of, like we're already there.
Well, exactly.
So.
You don't have to transport all the staff.
And what were you talking about?
It's a gathering called Big Tent, like a big
Okay.
tent revival, a big family gathering under the big tent. And sometimes they had themes, but it was an opportunity to come and wide open. So no commissioners, no one had to be
Right.
elected to go. It was just an
Especially
opportunity.
what they did in the off year. I think people said, well, 2 years is a long time not to see each other.
Yeah.
So let's use that time when we're not doing all the formal business to actually, right? I guess it was in response to like when the session meets and then everybody wants to sit around and talk for another half hour after the meeting's over,
Yeah.
right? So let's have a meeting that's not really a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Let's have a meeting where we can
come together and
schmooze and
worship and
catch up.
do workshops and those kinds
Yeah,
of
that was great. I actually really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next summer, Yeah, I don't know what the plan is for that.
They'll probably vote on it at GA, maybe.
Well, they might, because it's part of, I mean, that's part
That's
of the
part of the
budget.
rotation stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you got to pay for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds fascinating.
Yeah. So any other questions?
So Cindy, I'm thinking I'm starting to work on my April newsletter for church. And I'm thinking, you know, the amount of, right, it's just way overwhelming. So obviously one can point people to resources and stuff, but do you know, I know the Outlook does a pretty nice summary stuff. Do they do a preliminary?
Yeah, so right now, in fact, at the presbytery level, we pay for pre-GA subscriptions to the Outlook for our commissioners. And they go over some of the big items of business that are coming. They will usually do interviews with moderator candidates, yeah. And so it's,
Yeah, and I think I actually have received the link to that. I did not realize that things were starting in May. I'm used to it being in June. And I didn't need to know that, I guess, so I didn't take that in. So
yeah. So the 6 issues start, I think it's every other week, so 12 weeks before the assembly gathers on
yeah,
June.
their usual publication schedule is 2 weeks. So, and I don't know, right? Like sometimes you can get people interested and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, they do what they do. And we've got enough on our plate with our local,
Yeah. Oh, there you are. I thought you froze.
No, my grandfather clock was going off.
Oh. Well, it is about that time. Yeah, so this is part of how we decide who we are. And I'll say, in 2018, at the 223rd General Assembly, the Assembly voted actually for a second time to claim the Matthew 25 vision. And at that assembly, we affirmed the election of Reverend Dr. Diane Givens Moffett as president and executive director of the Presbyterian Mission Agency. And Diane said, "What's this Matthew 25 thing? If the General Assembly said we want to do this, then we need to do this." And so she picked that up and brought it back. And here we are. The assembly said it, and Diane took the next step of helping put it into action. So, pretty cool. Well, on this March 17th, Thursday, I hope you have a good rest of the night. In April, I'm going to be looking at bylaws. Because I know we have several congregations that are revising and revisiting bylaws, and I've been getting questions about what is and is not necessary. So we're going to take a look at what should be in bylaws, what shouldn't be in bylaws, and just some kind of guidelines for that. So we've got those resources in front of us. So that will be April 21st. All right.
Yes.
Very good. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.